this one's called 10 Factors That Might Distract You or Detract You from Buying a Rolex Watch. Probably detract you more than distract you, but a little bit of both. Price. As you know, Rolex watches are expensive. It's no secret. And you could easily pay $7,500 for a Rolex watch. And with that kind of money, there's always other things to buy in your life. Transportation, housing, etc. And if you had that same amount of money that you put into a Rolex watch, if you had that in the bank, you'd still get interest. If you still had that in other investments, you still get interest. Any kind of investment that gets interest. So there's other options for things you can do with your money. Availability. Now, there's no Skill Sports Rolex available at the Rolex authorized dealers. These Rolex authorized dealers do not have Steel Sports available because they're selling out. Sell it so fast, your chances of getting one are pretty nil. And not everyone wants to buy a second-hand watch. Sure, you can't get it at the authorized dealer, but there's all kinds of places you can get a second-hand Rolex, but not everybody wants to buy a second-hand watch. Now, the potential of second-hand watches are, you get one that's all polished, and you can get a Franken watch. Even a stolen watch, too. So, now as you know, Rolex watches are a trend. And watches always go in trends. Just look at the past trends, like the Panerai trend and trends before that. And now Rolex watches are trendy, but that trend will die. Now, that's a lot of money to buy into a trend. If you're just buying a Rolex watch to be in a trend, well, when that trend is done, you're going to be left out. You're going to be looking for the next trend. And when you're looking for the next trend and you want to get rid of the current watch trend, it probably won't be so easy to sell, will it? So that's a lot of money to dump into a trend. Get whacked. Now, when you're wearing a Rolex watch, you have to wear that watch with security in mind. As you know, people that wear Rolex watches have a high chance of getting whacked, getting robbed, getting knocked over, having their watch stolen. You can't wear this Rolex watch carefree. You even have to store your watch with security in mind. So it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing to have that Rolex watch in security. Every scratch and any damage will cost big. So you damage your watch, you drop it on the floor, scratch it all up, you burn it, throw chemicals on it, whatever. You're reducing the value of that watch, and that's a lot of value because it's an expensive watch. So everything you do to that watch, you're reducing its value. If you're wearing a $50 watch, if you wrecked it, you could just buy another watch. You're out $50, but these watches, as you know, the price, every bit of damage or scratches, drops, costs you big. There are too many fakes. When you think about fake watches, you naturally think about Rolex watches. It's a universal thing. Fake watch, first thing comes to mind, oh, fake Rolex. So, in that case, your chance of buying a fake is much increased. And if you really care what people think about you, the way you dress and what you wear, let's be realistic, some people really do. Maybe they're not supposed to, but they do. people around always assume you're wearing a fake. They may say, oh, is that watch real? So there's just too many fakes. Thing is, what if your watch is there and you just set it down, you turn your head, and somebody switches it with a fake? You never know. Weird things happen, right? No one will notice your watch. Nope. No one's going to notice your watch. You're not going to walk into a room wearing your Rolex watch and everybody goes, oh, he's just wearing a Rolex. And people admitted that about themselves a Rolex watch. And first thing they've noticed, like nobody really noticed their watch. So they notice that nobody's noticed their Rolex. Isn't that wonderful? Dumped all that money into a Rolex and nobody even noticed. The thing is, if they do notice, you may be discriminated against. So let's say you work in an office or in a place where people notice what you wear. You walk in with a very expensive Rolex watch. Who knows? You may be discriminated against. People might just think, oh, well, he don't need the money. He don't need a raise. He doesn't need any help. He's got a Rolex. So you could be very well discriminated against. And you may have known someone who saved a long time and bought themselves a brand new car. And look how people treat them. They get discriminated against. Something to think about. Everybody lives in different kinds of neighborhoods and different kinds of towns and cities, and something to think about. Will you be discriminated against going into your job or wherever you are because you're sporting a Rolex watch? Who knows, right? There's a flood of quality HOMAGE watches available. You don't have to sink thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into a Rolex to have a quality watch. There's all kinds of Rolex HOMAGEs available. Every shapes and sizes. And you know, I wish that Audemars Piguet watches were as trendy now as the Rolex watches, because there'd be even more HOMAGEs available of Audemars Piguet watches. But you think of it, with all these quality HOMAGE Rolex watches around, you could have a whole collection instead of just one Rolex watch. Like for that kind of money, you get like nice Rolex HOMAGE watches for as cheap as under $100. A good example is Invicta Pro Diver. I mean, the Invicta Pro Diver will serve you well for under $100. So you don't have to run out and spend over $7,500 for a Rolex Submariner, right? And you may not feel like paying higher service costs. So when you think about your Rolex watch, it's an expensive watch, and you're going to pay higher service costs. Well, there's bank vault costs to keep it from getting stolen. There's general servicing costs. And it costs around $800 to service a Rolex. $800. Well, that's quite a bit of money to service something, and maybe there's a lot of things you could do with $800 instead. You could buy a lot of watches for $800, right? And you could pay a lot of interest on your money with $800 too. And some people's whole monthly rent is $800, so there you go. You don't need those specifications. So Rolex watches have very good specifications, and they probably are higher specifications than what you really need. And you got to ask yourself these questions. Do you need an automatic watch that keeps time within 1 to 2 seconds per day? Do you need that? You can get a quartz watch that'll keep very good times. Very good time, like similar, probably better. And you can get quartz watches for as cheap as $2, really. And do you really need an automatic watch that keeps that kind of specifications, 1 to 2 seconds per day? You can get cheaper automatic watches that, well, they could very well be 20 seconds out a day, but they'll cost under $100. They probably will be even better than that. You don't need an automatic watch with a 48-hour power reserve. You could very well find an automatic watch that has less than 40 hours power reserve. So there you go. And some of the Rolex watches, the better divers watches, have not 100, but 1,000 meters of water resistance. So do you really need a watch that has 1,000 meters of water resistance? I mean, if you're just going down to the mail to get your mail and going to work in an office and you may go out in the rain every once in a while, do you really need a watch that has 1,000 meters of water resistance? So you just may not need those specifications, and you may not see that those specifications really need to have $7,500 plus money spent for those specifications. And like I was saying about the HOMAGE watches, you can get very good specifications for cheap with those too. For example, 200 meters water resistance, 40-hour power reserve, solid links, enough luminescence on the indices and hands to get you by, and that's all with an Invicta Pro Diver for under $100. And another thing, don't let these phonies detract you from an Invicta Pro Diver either. These phonies will go on reviews, they'll do reviews, and they'll tell you that a lot of things that aren't true about the Invicta Pro Diver. So don't take what they say for cash. They'll have you believing that the bezel's just about ready to fall off the Invicta Pro Diver, which is false. They'll have you believe a lot of things like, oh, it's a lower quality of everything. You gotta remember, you're paying less than $100 for the Invicta Pro Diver. And the quality is very on par. Actually, more than on par for what you're paying. So don't believe these guys will tell you, oh, it'll just fall apart next week and all this and that. These guys are just saying that to try to make their Rolex watch they paid too much money for, their second-hand Rolex watch, put it at that. They're trying to make those second-hand Rolex watches they paid too much money for look better in value by running down other watches that, in comparison of the money, are actually better watches, right? So these are 10 factors that might detract you from buying a Rolex watch. The price, the availability, the trend, getting whacked, every single scratch and any damage, too many fakes, no one will notice you or your watch, a flood of quality HOMAGE watches available, you don't feel like paying higher service costs, and you don't need those specifications. So what do you guys think?